Good morning, guys. Please subscribe, hit the like button right now so you can support this channel. Also hit the notification bell if you would like notifications. So we are on part 5 of the Lori Vallow Then and Now. So on part 4 of this series that I'm making, we learned that the Vallows, they were married for about 13 years, so Charles and Lori. And at the beginning of their marriage, people described Lori as a person that was a pretty good mother. But as we went through the timeline, we figured out that there was a point where she was kind of ignoring her kids, taking them out of school. She was threatening people, and there was just a lot going on. She was lying, according to Charles. And what caused this was the fact that she got involved with a guy named Chad Daybell by reading his books. Then she started meeting up with him, and then now she's going to a bunch of speaking conventions that is through Preparing the People. And so according to Charles, he believes that Lori really believes that she is a Mormon prophet. And not just any prophet, Moroni. And if you're not familiar with LDS, look it up. I don't have time to explain it in detail right now, but he was the angel that actually talked to the founder of this religion, Joseph Smith. According to Charles Vallow, Lori Vallow is sealed or internally married to the ancient Book of Mormon, the prophet Moroni. In some cases, we hear that she thinks she is Moroni, like I mentioned earlier, and that she has lived numerous lives on numerous planets prior to her current life. So in a phone conversation sometime in that timeline on part 4, Lori calls Charles and informs him that she's been assigned by God to carry out the work of the 144,000. This is for Christ's coming this summer of 2020. We also know that Charles is trying his best to get custody of JJ. He's trying to save that child. He knows something is not going right with Lori Vallow, and he's doing everything in his power to try to stop her from doing whatever she's going to do. He also shows concern for his own safety, and it's on paperwork, on documents. So anyways, that's where we're heading to. We're fixing to find out what happened right now. So right now, we are in this summer of 2019. So we're going to go ahead and start with June. And sometime during this period, this is new information for me, so I don't have a whole lot on it. Chad Daybell had emailed Lori Vallow on the subject of white camps. He also sent her more emails on the subject of 7 missions to accomplish together. They were also discussing, before I move forward with this, about the firstborn presidency and how to establish distributing food when the tribulations begin. So they are preparing. They know for a fact that Christ is coming this summer. They're actually trying to organize these white camps, establish organization, really pretty much just trying to get the ball rolling. So she believes that she's one of those 144,000. So does Chad and a few others. So we hear them mentioning the firstborn, and what the heck does that even mean? So the firstborn, it says online, the Church of Firstborn was the select of the Latter-day Saint movement, and it formed as an offshoot of this group, or LDS. According to Wiki, it formed in 1861, and it was also involved with the Morrisite War. Okay, there's a lot of information on this, guys, and even I haven't had time to look at all this information for myself because there's just so much of it, but we'll do our best here. And what I'm going to do is break it down to where I think is kind of important. What they're saying about this firstborn is What set the Church of the Firstborn apart from the majority of the Latter-day Saints, at least subgroups, is the belief in reincarnation. And they say that they call this, quote, baby resurrection, end quote, by the church. Of course, there was some lead names involved. Morris and Williams taught that reincarnation was taught by Joseph Smith, and that the majority of the Latter-day Saints are in apostasy for teaching such stuff. So there you go. It's a quick breakdown. And now what I want to do is jump back to the timeline and explain to you what was in that email. Guys, I had no idea what I was getting myself into with so much information here, and I was just trying to look for clues that might help tell where the kids are. But anyways, let's go over this email that Chad Daybell sent to Lori, and it's titled 7 Missions to Accomplish Together. The first mission is to translate ancient records. Number 2, write a book about the translation process. Number 3, identify locations in northeast Arizona for white camps. Number 4, presidency of the Church of the Firstborn. So it sounds like they're about to get really serious on developing and pushing their visions, their leadership. Number 5, help establish the food distribution as the tribulations start. And sorry guys, I lost my spot there. And the delegate. Ordain individuals to translation as camps begin. So they do have plans to have these camps up and running. And what exactly is this translation? We're going to go through that later. So number 7, provide supplies to righteous members of families. So you don't have to, you can read in between the lines here and figure out. You don't have to be a genius to figure that they are planning on gathering. And they're going to gather in these white camps. They're going to have all the food that these families bring to these campsites. And then they will distribute that food as they see fit. So when we're talking about Lori Vallow here, everybody's trying to figure out what's her problem. Well, she's in survival mode right now. She is totally lost in this nonsense. You have to understand that Lori Vallow truly believes that she is a superior being. This is something she's always wanted to be anyways. She's always liked the spotlight. She likes to feel needed, loved, and that's what she was once as a mother. But I guess her kids are growing up. She's getting older. She meets Chad Daybell. And she's already having probably mental issues maybe. We don't know why. And this just really takes her over the cliff. So he tells her, Chad is talking to her and telling her, look, you're important to me. You're a gatherer. And God says to me, I'm not sure, this is speculation, guys, that you are my gatherer. You're going to help us build these white camps and bring these 144,000 to safety. So finding out that they do believe in reincarnation is kind of interesting. But like I said, there's so much information on this, guys. It would take weeks to get it all. I don't know about you guys, but when we started out with this, we thought perhaps Lori Daybell is the one poisoning Chad Daybell, but it almost looks like it's a mutual poisoning. And we will find out as investigators share more whenever that is. Now, guys, you have to remember both Lori and Chad Daybell are both married. So Lori's married to Charles Vallow. Chad Daybell is married to this most beautiful woman, Tammy Daybell. And the Daybells have 5 children together. June 13 of 2019, Lori uses Vimo to send her older son, Colby, money. She also left a note that said it's for medicine with a little heart emoji. Now, remember, we already heard that Charles actually signed the divorce papers, was trying to deliver them to Lori, but There's some re well, let's see, resources that are saying that in late June of 2019, Charles returns to Arizona to try to make the relationship work. Like I mentioned, the timeline's a little bit of a mess right now. It is said that on June 20th of 2019 that Lori and Charles actually rent another house together. And this is according to East Idaho News and Fox 10 Phoenix. July 2nd, 2019, Lori does a podcast with Melanie Gibb and Kelly titled Time to Warrior Up. But I see this podcast actually jump up at different dates, so hopefully this one's the right one. As we get into July 8th of 2019, we're going to hear another few names come into the picture, and that is Brandon Boudreaux. That is Lori's brother-in-law. Well, kind of. He is married to Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux. On July 8th, Brandon Boudreaux says he files for divorce and child custody of all their children. So this is in Maricopa County in Arizona. It's under the records regarding minor children. On July 10th of 2019, Charles Vallow texts Lori to say he would be there about 7:30 a.m. to pick JJ up on Wednesday. He agrees that he'll take JJ to school. He also mentions that he will take JJ to school Thursday and Friday, so the rest of the week. Lori Vallow tells Charles, "No problem, sure, you can take JJ to school, but he cannot stay in the house." So, supposedly, right, we hear that Charles and Lori rented this house together, but here she's saying he can't stay in the house. She says she will book him a hotel room nearby. You can find that information on the Chandler PT interview documents. So again, it's July 10th of 2019, and it's approximately around 7:49 p.m. Charles texts his landlord, JP, saying that he wants to find a new place to live because things are not working out with Lori. Go figure, right? So according to East Idaho News, Charles Vallow makes plans to meet with the landlord the very next morning. So he has plans to speak with the landlord. He's already pretty much fell for Lori's tricks once again. Now he's saying things aren't working out. Obviously, she's using him to get these rental houses, it seems. We'll find out later. That's just speculation, but that's what it seems like. Once she gets what she wants, she starts cutting him pretty much out again. But he's there and he's putting up with it. We do know that the courts had ordered for them to put cameras into their house at one time while they were going through divorce because it was getting so intense. And I'm waiting for that video to become public. Hopefully it does. So, Charles Vallow wakes up on July 11th, 2019, drives from wherever he's staying to the house Lori was at. When Charles arrived, he noticed that Lori wasn't alone. We're not sure how that went, but when he did arrive that morning, Lori's brother Alex Cox was also there. Alex Cox was actually staying in an empty room with a mattress on the floor. His stuff was pretty much strolled all over the room. I want to mention where this house is located. So this home was located in the 5500 block of South Four Peaks Place in Chandler, Arizona. According to the few documents that I gathered on this one, Lori was living there with Tylee JJ, but she was separated from Charles Vallow. Documents say that Charles come to the house to pick up JJ to take him to school. But when he arrived, according to Alex Cox and Lori Vallow, Charles and Lori got into an argument. That argument got pretty heated. So heated, in fact, that they say that Tylee went and grabbed a bat. They were insinuating that Charles Vallow was getting violent. But later on, they did try to figure out, was Charles Vallow a violent man? But there's really no history of him being violent. And that is even coming from Colby. Now, some sources say that Lori, Tylee, and JJ were all at the house when the shooting occurred. But Alex Cox claimed that that Lori and the kids left, and that's when things got heated. He claims that pretty much Charles come at him with this bat that Tylee left behind, hit him in the back of the head, and Alex said he ran to his room, grabbed the gun, and come back out and shot Charles. And of course, he says or claims that this is in self-defense. I don't know how long Alex Cox waited to call 911, but he ended up calling 911 to report that he had shot somebody in self-defense and that he didn't know that person was alive. But what was strange is that he didn't even try to, do CPR.
So before I forget, we're doing an environmental change, guys. So my voice will change and things too. So I want to go over the exact time. So around 7:30 a.m. of that day that Charles was shot, Lori says she had JJ's backpack ready for school, and she looked at the clock to note the time. According to Lori Vallow, Charles Vallow arrived to her home at 7:35 to 7:40 a.m. that morning. She says that he was running late, which is quite unusual for him. He usually is on time. But remember, there was a meeting with an attorney, but I'm sorry, the landlord, but not certain what time that was. She then proceeds to tell Charles that she can take JJ, go now, and get breakfast for JJ at Burger King. According to Lori, Charles takes JJ to the car, but left his phone on the kitchen counter and comes back for it. Lori picks up Charles' phone and refuses to give it back to him. Lori says she was trying to see texts he had on his phone and asking him about those texts to her other brother, Adam. Lori says she wouldn't give Charles back the phone, and he was screaming at her to give him back his phone. Lori said that she was just holding it there, while Charles continued to scream at her. Lori said she was kind of walking around the house. She was trying her best just to keep him from getting the phone, and she told police that Charles was kind of reaching for it. So as you can see, Lori Vallow, she's taking his phone. She's kind of aggravating him. So is this the argument that they're talking about? Well, I can't go into all the details and get through this entire series. And we'll go and do a video on just the reports later on. But my question is where was this phone once she left the house? So according to Alex Cox, his testimony was prior to the shooting, there was an argument between Charles Vallow and Lori Daybell. At some point, like I mentioned earlier, Tylee steps in with a bat. According to Alex, she did this in order to defend her mother. According to different accounts, depends on where you get them, Charles takes the bat from Tylee. But there's other reports that say that Charles actually got the bat from where it was leaning against the wall. So we don't know what the truth is on this one. What we also learned is Charles used to play baseball. According to Alex, Charles got this bat and began swinging. Cox, who was there at Lori's home, said that he intervened with the struggle. The police report shows that he grabbed Charles from behind and then fell to the floor. Cox stood back up and then turned around, and he said Charles Vallow hit him in the back of the head with the bat. And his direct quote that Alex made was, "So I went to my room, got my gun, because I always carry it." According to Alex Cox, he pleaded with Charles to drop the bat before he shot him, so he didn't do it, so he shot him. You can pull up video where Alex Cox talks to the police and he gives his side of the story and his account of what happened. It isn't long, and you'll hear a neighbor walk in wanting to talk to the police, but the police kind of says, no, wait over there. And then you see Lori and Tylee Ryan actually drive up and walk up to the police as well. So interestingly, what was interesting, well, for me anyways, was where you see the police do a walk-in to check Lori Vallow's house out, and you can see Charles laying on the floor. And there you have to wonder, nobody's doing CPR, nobody's really concerned, you know, if they can save Charles' life. And that kind of bothered me a little bit. And that was a very hard video to watch. As the police officer walked into the house, he said he was looking for a wallet because he didn't have any information on Charles, which was strange because Charles Vallow has been married to this family, in this family, 13 years now. So the police officer walks through the house and he notices, he sees that Charles is laying on the floor, motionless. Walks by him casually, walks into Alex's room several times to check him out, looking for Charles Vallow's wallet. So what does this say to you? It sounds like to me, if Charles Vallow's wallet is missing, that raises a lot of question marks. We know that Lori Vallow had his phone somehow, but where was his wallet? So anyways, we're going to go ahead and start moving on in this timeline. I just wanted to raise awareness to that for those of you that are following this story. I want to remind you that Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, had already served time behind bars for his attack against Joseph Ryan with a taser gun. And we felt some, you know, fear coming from that guy as well when he kind of pulled back on taking steps against Lori, especially with the child custody papers. He would pull back and then he would continue on, and that, you know, raises a lot of questions for me as well. Now, at some point, I want to remind you guys that the Chandler, Arizona Police Department acquired suspicious collection of emails that was sent and received by Lori Vallow's ex-husband. And in these emails, because I'm not certain where they fit in right now, because the story's so big, it's hard to get it exact, especially with what's going on right now. And some of that email, it says that Lori actually created an email in Charles Vallow's name, and she was responding to Chad Daybell through that email. In one of those emails, it says, "I would gladly fly you down early next week. You could stay in our guest room like before. I hate to take you away from your family, but I would definitely make it worth your time." And these, according to police records, they say that these emails were wrote approximately around June 29th. So that's why I'm sticking it in here. So in this email, Charles figures out that Lori's using his name to write Chad Daybell. And he writes, "I'm going to send it to Chad Daybell's wife. Her name is Tammy, and I found her email addressed to the website too. I've got her cell number too." So I don't know who he wrote this to. Some people say he wrote it to his brother. I'm not certain. And nobody ever knows if Charles ever reached out to Tammy Daybell or not. Anyhow, shortly after these were exposed, we found out that Charles reportedly contacted Lori, accusing her of creating this account and sending messages. Lori wouldn't respond to him, so Charles emailed Lori's brother, Adam Cox. So maybe, you know, he sent this. Maybe you guys know more on this one than I do. You know, did he write this to his brother or did he write this to Lori's brother? So I'm going to have to do more research on that one when I get time. Now, the very same day that Charles is found deceased in his own home, or Lori's home, we know Charles had an appointment with the landlord, and he was going to let him know that, you know, that him and Lori were not getting along any longer. We know that she had his phone, his wallet was missing. And we also know that she was interviewed by cops afterwards. And on those interviews, and you can watch them, I can't remember where I've seen them at, I'm sorry. She doesn't appear to be very upset. And even stranger, the neighbors say that she goes on to have a pool party later that evening. So the kids had just experienced a dramatic event, and she's holding a huge pool party. So this information also come from the property manager, Joe Pogratz. I'm going to spell that Pongratz. He said neighbors reported a party was taking place at her home with very loud music. Now, Charles' sister shared with us, and I don't know if I shared this yet, she said that while Lori was with Charles, that Lori was not working. So Charles would go to work and Lori would leave to go somewhere. She never had a job. Charles' sister does admit that Lori actually did work at a hairdresser before they got married. So now we know Charles was shot. He's deceased. And the problem is the family is complaining that Lori didn't even let them know until many days later, July 12th of 2019. Lori sends a group text to Charles' 2 adult sons. It says, "Hi boys, I have very sad news. Your dad passed away yesterday. I'm working on making arrangements and I'll keep you informed with what's going on. I'm still not sure how to handle things. Just want you to know that I love you and so did your dad." And then she adds in a heart emoji. One son replies to Lori. Lori responds, "We are still waiting for the ME report. I'll let you know more when I can." Another son responds, "Where is he and what happened?" Lori replies, "I'll call you when I can, bub. He was here in Arizona." I know we hear that they say that she really doesn't contact them, but we can hear in her text that she says their father died yesterday. So on July 15th of 2020, Lori reaches out to Charles' life insurance company. Maybe we know why that wallet's missing. Either Charles didn't bring it with him or somebody took it. But interestingly, when she calls, the insurance company denied her access to any information on his account. It's at that moment she finds out that she's no longer Charles Vallow's beneficiary. The agent is allegedly told her that she would not be receiving any money. So after Charles' death, Lori is telling people different things or events that happened between her and Charles, how it happens. So she tells some people, for example, the Life Academy, she tells them that Charles committed suicide. But they later learned that Charles was killed as a part of a family dispute. So also during this time, Cheryl Wheeler, which is Charles Vallow's ex-wife, says she will never forget how she found out her ex-husband Charles Vallow died. She said, quote, "I checked the medical examiner's webpage and found Charles had been killed a day before and that it had been classified a homicide." She then further Googled and saw all the news reports out of Chandler. We found out that Alex Cox and Lori's brother had shot him. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I found this interesting. So also in July of 2019, and I've noted that 3 weeks after Charles was killed, Lori put the dog up for sale. So this is JJ's very expensive trained dog just for JJ. She listed for $2,500. And so this is shocking to people because this dog was very important part of JJ's life. Charles' ex-wife says, fortunately, the trainer saw the listing and told Lori she had to give it back to the rescue group. So the rescue group was able to take Bailey back and rehome the dog to another special needs boy. And I'll give you a little bit better dates as we move on. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Now, what is really odd about this is there's no funeral and no obituary for Charles Vallow. Charles' ex-wife explains to us in detail a little bit more what happened there. She said that Lori's family scheduled no funeral services, nothing. She says, quote, the Vallow family put together a memorial and Lori sent all of Charles' ashes. Kay and Larry, which is JJ's grandparents, begged for Lori to have JJ there, but she didn't let him go to his own dad's funeral. They didn't even have an obituary. So Cheryl goes on to explain how she felt about this. She felt like this is just not normal. So Cheryl believes that Charles' death was 100% planned. She explained also that her ex-husband told people that if something happened to him, Lori was behind it. At the time this article come out, which is about 7 months after Charles passed away, she said Cheryl and her sons have not heard from anybody in Lori's family. Now, because the story is so huge, guys, you know, some things I uncover as I share it here too. So it mentions there that Charles Vallow had ashes. So obviously he was cremated as well. Now, according to these documents that I have right here, July 22nd of 2019, Lori sends an email to the dog training elite asking about finding a new family for JJ's service dog Bailey. Her reasoning for that, she says it's due to a change in life circumstances. So this actually, you know, says that this email did go out less than 2 weeks after the death of Charles. It's approximately around July to August of 2019. Lori apparently told JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, that and other people that Tylee was attending Brigham Young University. But when investigators later researched this, they find out that this was not true. So right now, Lori's still claiming that she is married to the ancient Book of Mormon prophet Moroni. She is a gatherer and she's on a mission. On August 5th of 2019, JJ starts a new school year. Also, August 6th of 2019, Vimo and Tylee's name sent money to her older brother, Colby Ryan, again, with a heart emoji with 2 exclamation points. So now it's August 9th of 2019, and this is a more detailed date for when JJ's service dog Bailey is for sale for $2,500. Lori is using a contact name, Lolo Ryan. In this listing, she writes, it costs $7,000 to train a dog, and he is trained for people with autism. The listing also says the owner of the dog, Charles Vallow, is deceased. She also mentions, I want to make sure I say this because I thought this was kind of funny, that it is a full breed of Golden Doodle, which is a mixed dog. So I did put this up so you guys can read it and go over exactly what she said. So what I want to do is end this one right here, and then I will work on the next one. Hopefully it goes a little bit smoother. I was kind of having distractions while making this one. It was very tough to get this one out. Couldn't concentrate like I usually do. But you know what? This story only gets crazier by the moment. It's very obvious that she does make plans ahead of time to do whatever she's doing. She knows what she wants to do, and she knows she's going to get it. The sad part of this is anybody in her way, well, you're not going to be around long. The question is why is she doing all this? Why is this so important to her? What is this bringing? I mean, what kind of joy is this bringing to her? What kind of success? What kind of life that she has to get rid of everybody that meant everything to her to take on this new life? How do you go from being this mother that lived and breathed for her children to a mother that's doing everything she can to get them out of her life? And she's even convinced herself that these children later are zombies, which we'll go over. You know, that they're demons and that they're better off. They're not on earth any longer. So I guess she believes she's being this great mother, doing whatever she's done with these children. Or some people believe that she's hiding these children as a punishment for the grandparents of JJ. But this is hard to believe, knowing that she's behind bars. She's trying to get bail to get out. But, you know, we'll talk about that too as well later. I don't want to give too much away. But we know that she's still behind bars. And the easiest way to get out from behind bar is to produce those children, which she hasn't done. So this is very unfathomable. I just don't understand what's going on in her brain. I don't think anybody does. And a lot of times people can put themselves in other people's shoes and try to guess. But this one, it's so, well, kind of way out there. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, number one, look at Chad Daybell. What in the world can he offer her? Well, we'll talk more about that later. But it just seems like there's just not enough there, other than he had something she wanted. She knew she could get something from him. And so what is it? Well, there's several things, and we'll also talk about that later. This is important because Lori isn't working, but she's living in these nice homes. She's trying to survive somehow. And I believe that you'll learn later on that Lori Vallow uses people to survive. She really doesn't make this bonding connection that most of us make with our spouses or our friends or our family, which leads me to believe there's a possibility that she could be a psychopath. Of course, that's just a thought. That's not solid information. So anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Love you guys. I'll see you guys soon.
Together as saints, as brothers and sisters, and preparing for the second coming of Christ. We want to be there together, and we want to be there strong together.